The Clayman Institute for Gender Research at Stanford University, creating a more equal society for women and men through data-driven research and public education.
So what my work has been trying to do is looking at something, negotiated order theory is something that's been around for a long time, not around gender. Anselm Strauss in 1978 wrote about how hospitals particularly were structured as negotiated orders in the sense that the way things work were incomplete and everything is a continual negotiation. And one of the things he said, which I love, quoting, stealing from Gertrude Stein, is he said, a negotiation is a negotiation is a negotiation, right? Not all negotiations are the same. And so in my own work, what I've been trying to do is look at how negotiations occur around work. So it's not just about money, it's about the everyday activities that we're engaged in. The second aspect of it is negotiators are organizational actors, where the power and status to define the situation of what's negotiable and what's not is part of the context. And negotiated orders set the context for particular negotiations, but it means that negotiations can change those negotiated orders as well. So it's not as static. And what I've added to this is this notion of second-generation gender issues that Susan Sturm has written so much about. So first generation would be overt discrimination. Second-generation gender issues are where gender is embedded in organizational policies and practices and cultures, and where things can look natural and neutral, but they have differential impacts. So in these second-generation issues, what are the implications for negotiation processes? How can we think about studying gender and negotiation in these contexts? Well, the first thing that's important is these issues are constructed. They're not given, right? We have to figure out, is this a negotiable issue? Who's going to negotiate it? How do we recognize it? And even more complicated, what does somebody want when they negotiate? In our laboratory studies, we tell them what they want. They want to get as much as they can around a number. Here, what is it? How do we figure out exactly what we want? Because these are sort of, it's more negotiating around rather than bargaining for things. The second is, who's positioned to negotiate? So in my work, I've been really interested in how people get positioned in negotiation so they feel legitimate asking for what they want to ask for. And there, it isn't just about, how you ask, although I think that's important. It's about your value, your position in the organization, how people see you, the kinds of information you have, how easy it is to get people to negotiate with you. Those are the issues that we need to pay attention to if we want to help people negotiate in these difficult kinds of situations. Or more complicated, I don't want to say difficult, they're more complicated kind of situations because what is the negotiation itself? The third thing is resistance, right? The degree to which these issues get raised. Some people might be losing out, other people might be gaining. In my own work and in Deb Meyerson's work too, we talk about the issues of moves and turns. So how do you think about dealing with resistance when it comes up? So somebody says, you want that opportunity, and somebody says to you, I don't think you're ready for this role, and you think you are. How do you turn that? You can't sit in a place of not ready. You might turn it by saying, what are you looking for in this role? What's the success criteria for somebody in this role? Or somebody says, when you're coming back from a maternity leave, and somebody says, I don't think you can really service this client in the way this client needs to be serviced. So you might have to then talk about why you think you can do it, what we call correcting moves. But in these kinds of situations, you're not just talking about offers and counter-offers, you're talking about people positioning themselves vis-a-vis each other. And then the last thing is, how do you frame issues without blame? Because when you talk about some of these gender issues in organizations, the implication may be that people might see themselves as what Susan calls bad actors. And we don't see them as bad actors, but what we're really trying to do is enlist them to work with us. So I always tell people, what are some of the reasons you need for people's reasons for saying no? How can you understand that it's not from bad actors? They might not just have recognized these situations. So what are people's reasons for saying no? So at the individual level, this is where what I call sort of the shadow negotiation, how people position themselves, how they recognize issues, how they get people to the table, how they deal with challenges to their legitimacy, how they enlist others to work with them, and how they try to reframe the negotiation so it doesn't just look like a zero-sum game.